What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GC8 build. So it's been entirely too long since I've done a video on it, and I apologize for that if you've been following along. It's probably the same day that I'm filming this as it is that I'm uploading it, if I actually got around to doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But the rest of the footage in this video is pretty old. As far as like the work that's being done and everything like that, it's probably like a month or so old, just because I've done a lot of work on the car, but I haven't really had time to edit or anything like that. So I apologize for that, but if you are interested in staying more up to date on the build or anything like that, if you follow my Instagram, there's a lot of updates on there. I try to be a little bit more regular about posting everything on there, like step by step as I do it. But obviously videos are going to come out on everything, so I apologize in advance for the long delay. I've had a lot of crazy stuff happen. Everyone has this year. I got some cool, exciting stuff coming up too in the future. Has to do with rally, which I'll be at a lot of rallies this year. Unfortunately, I won't be actually driving in them. I'll just be there. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys around. I'll definitely let you guys know a little bit more about that in the future though. Anyway, the reason that I'm even doing this intro right now is because in the last video I asked you guys to drop what you think the tube front end actually weighs. I know that was a long time ago, so if you remember your guesses. One guy actually pretty much nailed it spot on. It was Bill Cutlet. He guessed 42 pounds. The front end weighs 42.5 pounds. So super close guess. Front end's pretty light. I added a couple of brackets since then, and I didn't weigh it after that, but it probably didn't add very much to it. So total overall, between everything that we had on the front end, so we had the crash bar, which weighed 39.8 pounds. Gotta go to the trusty whiteboard. And then the actual sheet metal that we cut off the front was right at almost 42 pounds. So looking at right around 82 pounds almost. So pretty close to 40 pounds in weight savings. It'll probably be a little bit less than that because I did plate the front end in a couple of spots, kind of added some reinforcement and stuff like that. You guys will see those in the future video. Anyways, I'll stop rambling. I apologize for the long intro, and we'll get right into work with the old footage that I've got now. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the GC8 build. We're picking up right where we left off. We stripped the firewall, stripped the front end of pretty much every single thing that was going through it. Harness, fuel lines, brake lines, everything like that was going through it. We got rid of it, either took it out or pushed it into the cabin. So now we're gonna seal up all the holes so that we can make sure that we don't get all those noxious fumes in there, all that nastiness, less risk of getting fire into the cabin if the car ever starts on fire. There's just a lot of pluses of making sure that your firewall is completely sealed up and not having holes, and hopefully less moisture getting inside of the car. So this is how we left it last time. We got the whole stripped firewall right now. Everything that we don't need, well, actually everything that is on the firewall is either through it or it's taken off. So the holes that we are going to be plugging up, we got this little hole right here. This had brake lines going through it before from the factory. I just had some wires going through there. I'm not going to have that anymore, so we can plug that one up. This had AC lines. That's going to get plugged up. We need those two. Those are going to be like the big, massive wiring harness things that are passing through the bulkhead. Those are going to the engine and the transmission, everything like that. So we got to leave those open. And then we have the heater core lines. Those are going to pass through. We can patch one of those little holes up there. Clutch master, we need to leave that. The throttle cable, got to leave that. Brake master cylinder, we got to leave that one too. And then there's one little one down there that we got to patch up. So all the things that used to pass through the firewall, which is a grommet, and then going through it, like my fuel lines did, my brake line did, and so did my hot and ground coming from the battery. So those all passed through grommets on there, and some of those grommets that I made deteriorated, and they caused a lot of rubbing. Luckily, I didn't have any issues with like shorting out the hot or anything like that, but it has the potential if that ever became more of an issue. So we're not going to be doing that anymore. We have bulkhead connectors for everything, so bulkhead connector for the hot and the ground. Fuel lines are going to have bulkhead connectors, and brake line. There's only one brake line going through the firewall to the back, but that's going to still have a bulkhead connector. And by bulkhead connector, I just mean something that firmly mounts to the firewall. So that way you don't have a grommet and something passing through the grommet. So the easiest way to do it is to just get sheet metal and weld it up. The firewall is pretty thick for sheet metal on this car. It's probably like between 16 and 18 gauge, I'd say. And it's stamped, so it has a lot of strength into it. The stuff that I'm going to be using is probably like 20 gauge sheet metal, so pretty thin stuff. Because it's not there to like add any strength or anything like that. It's literally just there to cover the hole. So I don't want to add a bunch of weight, so that's why we're going with the thin stuff. And it should be fairly easy. So I'm just going to make cardboard templates out of all these, start cutting them out, and then we'll just go along, clean up the holes where we're going to be welding, and then tack them into place. Good enough for me. I love those tools, honestly. That bandsaw with the belt sander combo, it's my favorite thing that I've ever had. This is like the third time I've said that, but it makes it so much easier. Like I used to, like a month ago, I would have cut this out with an angle grinder, even though I could have used like 10 snips because it's only 18 gauge. But yeah, like that's the type of stuff that I was using to fabricate things when that literally took all of 3 minutes to make. Super nice. Definitely recommend. 10 out of 10. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to clean up these edges just a little bit from the belt sander. Yeah, I'll get rid of all this paint, and then we'll break out the welder, start tacking them into place. All I'm doing to get these templates is putting it on there and like rubbing it really hard. I have enough dirt on my hand that it'll leave an imprint, as you can see, maybe. It's kind of like when you were like a kid and you like trace a quarter with like a pencil. Same concept pretty much. And I'm just cutting them out. Pretty rough cutout. You can always make them look a little better with the belt sander afterwards. Alright, well that wasn't that bad. I should have had my mask on because those fumes were pretty bad. Anyway, you should definitely try to clean up as much as you can. A lot of that burning was from the inside burning. I'm going to take a grinder now to them. I almost forgot about that little hole down there too, but I saw it at the very end. I think I'm going to get that one later. But I'm going to take a grinder to it. I'm going to use a flat disc with not too abrasive of a wheel on it, probably like a 180 grit, because you really don't want to go crazy with it because it's really easy. I mean, with how thin that sheet metal is, you can just grind way too much away and then you'll have no structural integrity in any of that. So yeah, we'll grind it down real quick, clean it up a little bit, and then go from there. All right, so I'm going to clean those up a little bit more later on. I'll probably use a Dremel. I'm not in any hurry to do this. I'm not getting to body work or anything like that. I got to completely take care of the entire engine bay all at once. Not that there's much left of the engine bay right now since the front end is removable, but yeah, those will all get cleaned up a little bit more with like the Dremel with that little finger sander thing that I've got. I need to get some better belts for it. Those are just the original belts that came with it, and they're pretty garbage. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is adding these things that I just magically got in my hands. So these are battery bulkhead connectors. So if you're running a battery cable through the cabin or whatever, like if you relocated your battery into the car, or if you have a battery cutoff switch, more than likely you're going to have to run wires from there into your cabin. These are just a very secure way of doing it, so you don't have to worry about just running it through a grommet, running it through the wheel well like mine was. Super ghetto. Don't recommend that. Definitely get something like these. These are super sturdy. They're going to really mount to the firewall. Squeeze it. They're rubber insulated. You don't have to worry about them shorting out, and then you can tighten them up fairly decent, and then you don't have to worry about them coming loose on you as well. So I thought a little bit about where I want to mount it, and I'm thinking kind of over here on the passenger side, just because there's really nothing right here. Well, now there isn't anything there. There used to be the fan control box or the fan box, and then the heater core was right there, but we're going with a smaller box to save some weight and a little bit of room. So I'm thinking that pretty much like right above where we just welded that plate in, we're going to put these in. So the hot needs to go to the starter, which is right here. I think you can kind of see it better now. So yeah, the hot's going to be running to right here. The ground, I'm going to run a ground strap to the engine, just like it normally has. So if I go right over here, I mean, preferably I would like to have come out like right here, but there's a lot going on right there. You got the clutch master cylinder coming out right there. You got a whole bunch of crap with the pedal box and everything like that up there, that it would be a major pain to like get at all the time. And I think I'll just run them right here if I ever needed to. You can even jump the car from there too. Like you don't have to get into the battery. You could just hook up your terminals to right there. Kind of a convenient place. So, and essentially there's really nothing right there on this car because it's not turboed. So yeah, I'm gonna figure out exactly where these are gonna go. Mark them, measure, and we'll cut some holes. Well, those aren't too bad. Turned out okay. The run of wire is going to be a lot shorter now because it literally only needs to go, I mean, overall it'll probably be like 18 inches once I like route it down, because the starter's just right here. So that'll be pretty close. Definitely a much better option than anything else, and super easy to install too. It will be kind of annoying to get underneath, but I really shouldn't have to deal with that after we get everything all done. I can't imagine needing to get to the hot on the other side, and it should be pretty accessible once I actually add in that heater too. Now I've got a lot of other bulkhead fittings that I got to throw on there. These are -6 for the fuel lines that we're going to be going through. Originally I just made a grommet that was passing through the firewall like right over here. It was kind of ghetto, like I was saying, really easy for it to like get abrasions or anything like that rubbing on like the metal, because it wasn't that good of a grommet because I made it out of some rubber that I had, and it didn't turn out that well. So we got these. These are going to go in. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to be putting these yet. I want to do the brake system first. That way I get the master cylinder exactly where it's going to sit before we actually do that, because that's going to kind of change where things used to be. And the only other fitting that we have that's going to be going through the bulkhead is the brake line fitting, going to the rear brakes and the hydro. We're not going to be doing that yet either because we got to get the master cylinder in too. So we got to wait on that before we do the rest of the bulkhead fittings. But we are going to do this harness. So the harness that used to run fuse box was here, and then it ran through the wheel well. We are going to go fuse box probably around here in the front end somewhere where I've got like an open space. Wires going through probably the old fuel line hole because it's pretty big. So I'm thinking that I'm going to trace the hole that's in the wheel well because it's pretty big, get a template of that, and then mark exactly where it's going to go, cut it out, as best as I can with like a Dremel or something, try to get as accurate as possible. And then that way we can use that massive grommet that's on the harness already. Then we don't have to come up with anything to protect those wires as they pass through the bulkhead. So definitely what we're going to try to do. So yeah, probably going to be a long process on that. So we got it in there. It actually looks pretty good in there. Fits decently well. I made the hole a tiny bit too big when I notched it a little bit more at the last portion. That's why it sucks using a Dremel like that. But it's not too bad. The fitment's definitely pretty tight all the way around it. So I'm super happy with how it is, and that is so much better than having it route through the wheel well. And the wires are still plenty long enough so I don't even have to like mess with the harness on the inside or anything like that. I'm super happy to have that thing rerouted now. I'm glad that it was a lot easier than I kind of thought it would be, because I was kind of getting worried that I might have to like lengthen the harness or come up with something weird, but that definitely was a good option. I'm super happy about it. Definitely recommend that if you have this type of a Subaru. Pretty much all the Subarus like this, like older ones, run through the wheel well, so it's definitely worth relocating it, especially because it's not that hard of a mod. The horror stories that I've heard from this stuff failing, from like costing them the whole rally from it getting ruined right away, I mean, that's super expensive to get a DNF from something that can easily be prevented. The new harness that you're gonna have to buy when it ruins it, the stuff it's gonna fry, it's just not worth it. I mean, it could start a fire and burn your whole car down, stuff like that. It's not worth it. So definitely, if you have something like this, either come up with protection for it, like you can wrap it in some thick PVC or something like that. But even then, if you crush your wheel and it goes up or something into it, or if you just rip a tire, like you get a bad flat and you're just throwing that retread around, it's probably going to rip everything down no matter how much you have that thing protected. It's going to mess up your entire wheel well, because these things are super heavy duty tires, and when they get a flat and they just start like whipping really crazy, it's not worth it to have that as a potential issue. So relocate it or protect it. Anyway, that's enough on that tangent. I think tomorrow I'm going to get up early and actually start on the brake system super quick, so we can knock out the brake system, we can get the fuel lines mounted too, get a whole bunch of stuff done once we get the brakes done. So that'll be fun. I hate doing brake lines. This is like the 4th time I've done them on this car. Hopefully this is the time that I do them correctly and the most efficiently. That's what I said last time too. And I did a decent job last time. It was just, I didn't really like how they looked. I didn't do the cleanest job of bending them. So this time we're gonna plan out the bends a lot better, and I'm gonna shut up. I'm going into the details of the next video. You guys will see it then, because you're all gonna stick around and watch that video. So I'll see you guys when I get the brake system done.